Well, this is the last session of the summit, and we just really want to end it off with a chat about resilience. We had a lot of awesome questions submitted to help shape this conversation, so I'm very excited to see where it takes us. And before we get started, just want to give a really quick shout out to our event partners, People Fluent, AYA, Healthcare, Zipline, and Leadership Canvas, all super excited and passionate about elevating people and building thriving cultures. And so just a huge thank you to our partners for helping to support and bring expertise to this event. Before we get started, really quickly, housekeeping items. Make sure your chat box feature is selected to everyone, the blue button, so that everyone can see what your comments are instead of just coming to us on the panel. Q&A box is open. You can submit anything throughout if you want to save it till the end. Professional development credits will also be shared at the end of each session. And all the sessions are being recorded, and our team will create a one-stop shop resource hub, and we'll send that out early next week. And just to set the stage for this conversation, I've picked this image of a plant growing in a concrete crack. You know, the growing conditions are tough, but the plant is resilient. And in many ways, that's what folks in our healthcare system do every day. They all show up in challenging environments, adapt, and keep going. And often we hear without the support or recognition that they deserve. And so for this session, we received a lot of questions from you about how to, spot the early signs of burnout, and just as importantly, how to intentionally build that culture of resilience. We also got a lot of questions around how to create cultures of psychological safety where everyone can feel supported, connected, and able to bring their best to the patients and the work they're doing as well as themselves. And so for this last session, rebuilding resilience on the front line, we just want to talk about how to create that kind of culture. So we'll explore how to design inclusive strategies, provide timely recognition and connection, and also ensure equity and engagement so that everyone, all the staff, no matter what role and location, can feel very valued and supported. And so before we dive in, I just wanted to run this poll just to get a feel for how the community is thinking about these topics. And so question one, what's the biggest driver of resilience for your staff? And two, when do you feel that recognition has the greatest impact on resilience? And as we give folks time to think about their answers for this question, let's introduce the panel. Zach, I'll pass it to you first, but please tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what Cameron Health does, and as well as the perspective you're hoping to bring to this conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here today. My name is Zach Beiswinger. I'm Executive Director of Patient Experience at Cameron Health. We are a critical access hospital in the most northeastern part of Indiana, and we've really pride ourselves in trying to take the best care of our staff as possible so that they can take great care of our patients. And yeah, I'm just really excited for the opportunity to be able to speak here today.
Thank you so much. Misty and then Shannon.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to be able to speak with all of you. My name is Misty Forche. I'm the director of the Credentialing Center at the Canadian Nursing Association here in Kingston, Ontario. I do have to say, I do live, learn, and play on the land of the Algonquin, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people, and I am coming to you from their land. So happy to be here and to be able to share our insights. We're doing a lot of work in this space at CNA on how to better support our nurses through the work that they're doing.
And I'm Shannon Matura. I'm a Senior Product Adoption Manager at People Fluent. People Fluent is an HR software company. We provide various HR softwares, compensation management, performance, succession, and learning. And even though I'm in the software realm, all of our patient advocates and frontline healthcare workers are near and dear to my heart. I have a son who started his fellowship this year in hematology oncology in Cincinnati, and one of my daughters graduated with her pediatric DNP this year and is splitting time between University of Michigan Mott Hospital and private practice. So of course, very near and dear to my heart, all the hard work that our healthcare professionals put in. Very happy to be here today.
Thank you so much for sharing, and congrats to your daughter and your son. Very exciting. All right, that's a good, I think a good base. I will now end this poll and share the results. Can y'all see the results come up on the poll? So for the first one, it's saying the biggest driver of resilience is feeling valued and recognized. And for the second question, when when does recognition have the greatest impact on resilience? Most folks are leaning towards regularly, no matter the situation. I'd love to take a moment for me to just like open the floor to the panelists here. What are your thoughts? And in the chat too, if people in the audience want to chime in, feel free to. But yes, opening the floor, what are your thoughts about these results?
Yeah, I feel like I completely agree with the results. You obviously looked like the number one choice there was feeling valued and recognized. And I think any great healthcare organization really wants to have a robust program where, again, they're being really critical about recognizing their staff and being consistent with that recognition. And so I completely agree with the poll. So.
And I think communication is huge. So feedback where and when it happens is always great. So I agree with that answer.
I would agree with both Zach and Shannon. I mean, I'm not surprised to see this. I think everyone wants to know that they're doing a good job. They want, they need that recognition and those moments of good, no matter what the situation is, but even if it was a good week, to be able to highlight the good times, and not just reinforce when bad things happen.
That's so true, where it's nice to have the critique, the critical feedback, but we also really do need to hear the positives and understand what it is that we're doing well as part of that constructive feedback process. I'm sure we'll get into that more throughout this discussion. So without further ado, I will ask the first question. Just to ground this topic, what does resilience mean to you in the context of healthcare workers, and where do we commonly miss the mark? Zach, I'll pass this one to you first.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, as I had previously mentioned, I think the goal of Cameron Health, and I think the goal of any healthcare organization, is to take great or excellent care of their patients. And um, healthcare can be a very inherently rewarding setting to serve in, but can also be very, very challenging as well. And so I felt like that poll that you guys had was very timely, because I think to build resilience within your organization, you have to have a robust system to reward and recognize your associates, and you want to be consistent with that. You want to make sure that you're refilling the buckets of your team members so that they are equipped to face the challenges that they're going to face each and every day, so that they feel recognized when they take great care of patients, and they feel recognized when they look for those opportunities to go above and beyond for patients, families, and visitors. And again, no one person is the same. And so I think you need to be very creative. But I think ultimately, to build resilience, you have to have a program in place where you're refilling the buckets of your staff so that they're encouraged and motivated to do the things they need to do each and every day to take great care of their patients, families, and visitors.
Amazing. Thank you. Misty or Shannon, do you want to jump in here and
Sure. I like how you stress, Zach, that it's each and every day, because I think what we need to keep in mind is that resilience isn't just about bouncing back after a bad event or a bad day or a bad situation. It's about being able to sustain our ability to continue to deliver that high level of care to our patients, regardless of what's going on and what our daily reality is. This is really something that we've been trying to focus on with nurses at the CNA, because we need to fill our own buckets. We need to care for ourselves. That's a part of caring for others. And I think we also have to understand that to build resilience, it's not just a personal skill. It's something that we need to be in a culture that owns that and also shares that responsibility to be able to ensure that we have things like safe staffing, that we have safe leadership, psychologically safe leadership, and opportunities to better ourselves, like things with like professional development opportunities or certification opportunities to really reinforce the fact that we are filling our own buckets first and having that resilience built up within ourselves.
Yeah, and maintaining that mental well-being and being able to perform effectively. Healthcare workers face demanding and potentially traumatic situations daily or even multiple times a day. So yeah, filling that bucket and having that, mental well-being and being able to, take the time, to step away and refill that, is huge, I think.
hearing themes of sustainability, like being sustainable with the resilience and thinking hard about the mental well-being, which lead us very well into our next question, which was submitted by folks in the community here. What are the signs of staff burnout and signs of staff burnout that leaders and peers should be watching for? Shannon, do you want to continue your train of thought there?
Sure, absolutely. Things that you're going to look at and notice, with your leaders or your peers if they're going through that are things like lack of engagement, decreases in productivity. Is someone late or absent more than they had been, before? Those are all signs that, they might be on that burnout track and they really need to maybe have that opportunity to refill that bucket.
Yeah, I would just I completely agree with Shannon. I take it a step further in terms of when you see lack of empathy. I think healthcare is very relational. And if you want to take great care of your patients, you have to build relationships with them. You have to spend time with them. You have to listen to them. And so when you start seeing staff lack empathy, not taking the extra mile to go above and beyond for patients, when they're lacking that engagement, that's a big sign of burnout to me. And then again, that's why I really think um, the programs that you have in place to recognize your staff, to refill those buckets, they're so vital. But when we start seeing things like lack of empathy, lack of effort to build relationships with patients, that's a key sign of burnout to me.
I think it's often the subtle shift too, where there are early signs. And as I reflected on this question, it reminded me of a story of a time when I worked with a nurse who was really engaged with his patients. He loved to sing, and he was always singing when he took care of his patients, if he was portering them around, going to DI, wherever it was. Uh, and kind of over the span of a few weeks, I started noticing that he wasn't doing it so much anymore. And the patients and families used to comment and all the time. And so I brought it up with him one day, and he just said, I just don't have the energy anymore. And I was a young nurse at the time, and I didn't think much of that. I just kind of accepted the answer and going on. But when I think back to that situation, I do wonder, was that a subtle shift of this nurse kind of losing some of that joy in his work, some of that emotional stability, and he was having some issues with burnout. And I think it's recognizing when those quiet shifts happen, and they can be so minor, just a small thing in their day, but all those quiet shifts start to build up and then start leading to compassion fatigue or that emotional withdrawal from their patients and the patient care that they're giving. And I think it's that's when they start to need that support, is really early on, and being able to recognize that is really just a matter of getting to know your colleagues and getting to know your staff and ensuring that you have those relationships with them so you can notice those subtle shifts.
Hey, Rebecca, I would chime in because I think Misty makes a great point that those shifts can be very subtle. With Cameron, when we look at like our patient experience scores and stuff, always the biggest opportunity for us, and I think our leadership team gets tired of me saying it, but we're always looking for opportunities to move perception of care from good to very good. And often it's the very little details that move that perception. And I think the little details when you're listening to patients and you're getting to know them. Recently we just had a patient come into our hospital and they were suffering from dry mouth, and they normally chew gum at home, but they chew one specific brand of gum. It was Wrigley's double mint gum that come in a green packaging. And turns out we actually carry two types of gum in our gift shop. That happened to be one of the packs of gum that we had. It was completely random, but we went down and got that pack of gum, took it up to the patient, and that just made this patient's day. And often it's those little things. So I agree with Misty completely that those subtle shifts can have a big impact. And those are the things that you're looking for.
Great story. It just really shows people that you care when you're like noticing these little things, their little behaviors. So that's a really powerful story. And I also really like this question that the person asked because it just shows the care that they have, right? So this person sounded like they're looking for a list and you guys gave it. Some signs to look for are lack of engagement, decrease in productivity, absenteeism, lack of empathy, lack of effort, or perhaps like a different shift in effort or a different shift in behaviors and what they used to be doing. So it's a really nice checklist for all of us to carry away and keep an eye out for our fellow colleagues and see if they might be experiencing some burnout, and we can hopefully try to help them out. Awesome. So next set of questions, we felt that resilience is more than just about pushing through, like Misty, what you were saying before in your definition. And you all mentioned the buckets when buckets are running low and finding ways to refill it. And so this just kind of leads us to our next area of focus. How do we design the systems and cultures that make care just really consistent and equitable across the board? And Zach, in your case, going from good to very good, always looking for ways to make things better. And so, what have you seen work when it comes to engaging healthcare teams in a consistent and equitable way? Zach, I'll pass that to you.
Yeah, at Cameron Health, we've done a variety of things. So we've had quarterly recognition events. We have an annual recognition event. But I think with anything that you do, the most important thing is to be present in the recognition, in my opinion. Of all the things that we've done, I think the most impactful thing is when we become aware that someone's done something where they've gone above and beyond for somebody. We actually have members. We have a rewards recognition team here. It's got frontline staff. It's got leadership. We actually go to that associate's department, whether it's a safety huddle, a department meeting, or just an appropriate time, and we recognize that associate in front of their peers. And that's created maybe some of the most powerful and impactful moments for us. But I'd also say it doesn't have to be some glorified event like that as well. This just happened last week where we had an adult patient with an intellectual disability come into the hospital for surgery, and he came with his mom. And our nurse came out from the pre-op area to bring him back, and he didn't want to go back. He was anxious, he was fearful, and this nurse actually knelt down beside the patient and just asked, "Hey, can I pray with you right now?" And they prayed right there, like in our surgical waiting area. And after the prayer, the patient stood up and calmly walked back to the pre-op area. And it was such a special thing. And later in that day, I found out about it, and I went and I thanked this nurse for doing that. And I thanked her for going above and beyond for our patients. I wanted to make sure that she understood the impact that she had in that situation. And she was in tears, and we didn't have a ton of people around. Our whole leadership team wasn't around, but just the fact someone took time to go to her and be present with her and thank her in person. I think being present is so powerful in recognition.
Absolutely. I think communication is huge too for teams. Whether it is, whatever different kinds of channels you have for your communication. Maybe it is that team huddle, that, before shift huddle. It might be your digital or, electronic communication channel. So your intranet, your Slack, your Teams, groups that you have. It could be emails, newsletters, anything that can make sure that you're communicating out to the teams, whatever it is that you have going on. And the more channels you're able to use, the more people that you're going to be able to reach. We all know that whatever organization we're in, we have multiple generations in the workforce, and they all take communication differently. So having those different options, is a great way to go about making sure everyone's feeling included as well.
Is there anything you want to add to this, Misty?
No, I think Shannon and Zachary hit it on the head. It's a lot about communication, and they know best what works. Like your team knows what works. They know what they need to be engaged, and they want to have a say. They want to be able to help make things better. Every person comes to work wanting to make things better, especially people who work in healthcare. That's why we do what we do. So I think it's really important to have that open communication channels, those open doors to have those conversations.
Thank you. Shifting gears a tiny bit, what low-lift technologies, tools, or rituals have helped your organization stay connected with every shift and unit? Just really having that theme of connectivity across the board.
Um, I can get started, Rebecca, here. One of the most effective kind of low lift approaches that I've seen and that I've implemented myself in a past life when I did work in acute care was leadership rounding, and not just with managers rounding with their staff or with the patients, but having those senior leaders out on the floors. It's not to check boxes just to say that we did it, but it was to listen to what the staff were saying and to really flatten those communication channels between the senior leadership team and what was actually happening on the units with the nurses and with the direct care individuals. And it allows time for that real-time feedback, and it helps to build trust and awareness of who are these people. They're not just sitting in their ivory towers. They're here with us. They're listening to us. They're hearing what we need. It could be as simple as something like the blanket warmer hasn't been fixed for weeks and the patients are cold. So what can a senior leadership team do? Can they escalate it? Can they buy a new blanket warmer if the part is not going to be able to come in? Those things that they might not have previously been aware of, that can be easily fixed. But it also allows that time for that frontline staff to give their ideas. What can I do that can make your work better today? What can Is there anything that any of your peers are doing that we should be applauding or we should be awarding? And having those conversations and starting to be able to address people by name, it really truly starts to make a difference in culture and starts to shift that perspective that the senior leadership team aren't talking heads. They're not just sitting in their offices, but they're there to improve the lives of their employees. They're there to improve the lives of the patients, and overall, together, you're all there to help ensure quality of care that's being given to the patients.
I couldn't agree with Misty more. I think leadership rounding on staff is vital. Being present at department meetings, being present at safety huddles, or just kind of impromptu check-ins and whatnot. I think those are super important. I'd also extend that to rounding on patients. And I think with healthcare, staff don't inherently want to be recognized or will tell you about some of the great things that they've done. But a great way to find out what type of care that your team is providing is to round on patients and ask patients, how's our team doing taking care of you is a question I ask patients every single day when we round. Another good one is there anybody here that's gone above and beyond to provide you with excellent care? And a lot of times you get great feedback from your patients, and you hear about some of these stories where patients are going above and beyond. Told a number of different stories, and I always have a lot of them, so I apologize. But I was rounding in the ER a while back, and we had a family come in, and they were supposed to be celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. Instead, the husband fell, cut his leg, and instead of going out to dinner for the reservations, they were in the ER. And what our staff did was they worked with our nutritional team. And they made sure that this couple had a special meal delivered to them with a special dessert, acknowledging their anniversary while they were in the emergency department. Like, if I didn't round on those patients and talk with the daughter, I would have never known that happened. Like, that team's not going to come to me and be like, "Hey, Zach, look what I did." I think sometimes you'll have other staff members come to you and acknowledge what other staff members have done. But typically, healthcare providers, whether they're clinical or non-clinical, aren't going to brag about themselves. So I think a great way to find out about the great things that are going on throughout your organization is rounding on patients. So completely agree with Misty.
And coming at it from a little bit different angle, not the direct patient rounding or leadership rounding, but a low lift tool or technology to use, a shared calendar. When are trainings happening? When are upcoming events? When's the potluck or the free lunch or free coffee? That's going to help do some bonding and some recognition through that. So simple things like that can also help keep everyone connected.
Yeah, simple things are so important. It's like immediately, well, what can we do tomorrow to make our lives a little bit easier? So no, those are great tips. And Zach, I just want to go back to your story too. I think it's so relatable when you say that a lot of people, they don't like bragging about themselves. And so a lot of the times these stories don't actually come to light unless leadership or colleagues are like actively seeking them. And it sounded like Cameron Health, y'all are very much about the stories and the celebrations. And so do you have any other tips on how to kind of build that culture?
Well, I think awareness, communicating that your teams, this is what we want to do for our patients, families, and visitors. We're looking for opportunities to go above and beyond. Like, I look at our patient experience scores every day, and I always joke with our teams, if our scores are bad, it's because they're good, and they're not very good. We're always seeking top box response. We're always seeking, how can we build that customer loyalty, and ultimately, how can we give the absolute best care to our patients, families, and visitors? And so when you get that out there, you create that awareness, you kind of build some momentum. It's like with the story I shared with you about the surgery nurse coming out and praying with that family. I found out about that through one of our volunteers. One of our volunteers came to my office, and he was in tears because he was so emotional about what he saw. And he's like, "Hey, Zach, you have to hear about this story." And so I think when you create that awareness, you communicate the expectation, you create the awareness. I think a lot of those things start naturally taking care of themselves. But I think the awareness and the communication of that awareness is super important.
Sounds like the awareness leads into a habit. Like it's not always, top of mind for people to recognize or like think that, oh, this is a story I should share with other people. And so it's really awesome that you've built that culture where people see something cool and they just can't wait to share it with the others in the organization. So the person gets that recognition that they deserve. And it's good to share these stories. Misty, Shannon, anything to add before we hop on to the next question? Perfect. And so let's talk a little bit about reward programs. Because in the question at the beginning, we did see that recognition all time regularly and feeling supported and that they are valued is something that's super important. So we have a question here. How can organizations design reward programs that help ensure every team member feels seen and appreciated, regardless of their shift, title, or location? Shannon, I'll pass this one to you first.
Sure. And again, I come at this from a little bit different angle. So I'm more from the HR and compensation team angle. But I think a really important item to think about is what is your organization's compensation philosophy? And if you're not familiar with what that is, that's really like the high level principles and beliefs around how employees should be rewarded for their work. So the reward programs that you're looking at really are guided by that compensation philosophy, and it aligns with your goals. So if patient care is one of your goals, sharing those stories and elevating, that as one of the, components of the reward program is really huge. And then communication, I go back to communication all the time because that is just how important it is. People need to understand what your reward programs are. What's the point of the program? What's the criteria around it? How do we communicate it and get that out there? Are there different rules or regulations around it? And all that's very important to all levels of the organization. So you can make sure that everyone is inclusive and understanding of what these programs are and how they align with your goals.
Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah, I would chime in. I love Shannon's use of the word philosophy, like having different guardrails to kind of guide what you're doing. Maybe another way to say it, I think feedback is important. I think you need to get feedback from your teams. And so when I started here at Cameron Health, one of the things that we did is we created a rewards and recognition team. And so we had, again, that has members of our frontline team, it has clinical members, it has non-clinical members, it has leaders on it. And we wanted to evaluate, what's working well right now with the current program that we have in place, and then what opportunities do we have? And that shifted us into conversations talking about, do we have, is our recognition consistent? Is it inclusive? Is it responsive? Do we have redeeming options available for associates that are on site and off site? Our previous program that we had in place, someone got it was called an impression. They get a $2 coupon to our cafe, which is great for me because I eat in a cafe every day. But our offsite associates, that really doesn't do anything for them. And so we got feedback from our team, and what kind of we actually heard about bucket lists kind of about the same time that we're kind of having these discussions. And for us, bucket list checked a lot of the boxes that we were looking for. It was responsive, it was easy to use, it was inclusive of both the associates that were on site and off site. It allowed us to incorporate the values that we have at Cameron into the program. And so it was a great tool for us to kind of serve as the foundation for our rewards and recognition program. But it all started with us getting feedback from our team and understanding, what things we have in place now is working. And then, what opportunities do we have and what do we want this to look like in the future? So I think feedback is vital from your team. And you have to have members all across your organization. If you just have clinical members of your team, obviously you're leaving out some of the non-clinical members. If you just have on-site associates, you're losing sight of the associates that you have off-site that are putting so many of us in the position to succeed. And so again, it has to be a diverse group that you get feedback from as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. I'd like to ask this question to bucket list users. So just to give folks an idea of like rewards that they can give, what are some of your team's favorite rewards that they tend to like redeem for?
For us, it's two things. The Visa gift cards are great because associates here at Cameron Health are going to redeem the Visa gift cards and they're going to take that down to our gift shop and get some Cameron Health swag. The other thing that we really like too is we're able to donate to the Cameron Foundation through Bucket List. So we have a foundation that does a number of things to support not only just like our hospital, but the patients, families, and visitors in our community. And so we're able to, again, donate to our foundation through Bucket List. So those are the two most popular items that we see redeemed.
I love that. With the Visa gift card, like gift cards in general, it just really shows that people are redeeming or getting, they like having rewards for things that they will use and it's like useful for them. Like we see people redeem for like grocery gift cards and stuff. It's just like not necessarily always like the fun stuff, but it's like the necessity. So it's nice when employers can support the employees with the things that will actually like be really helpful to them. And I also really like the philanthropic, sorry, that word is kind of long for me today, but the philanthropy aspect where people are really into like the donations and all of that, supporting a good cause. So it's really cool that those are the two areas that your team is leaning towards. And so for Misty, we'd love to hear from you and also a little bit about the professional development side of things for when it comes to looking at rewards and making people feel valued and recognized for the work they're doing.
Yeah, I can't echo what Shannon and Zach said enough that it really needs to be inclusive. There's so many hidden players in healthcare that the patients may never see. So I think keeping in mind when you do have a rewards-based program that yes, it's amazing when we hear the success stories from our patients and their families, but to also have a way to recognize those kind of hidden gems that we have in our organizations that may not get the face time with the patients that others get because the work they're doing does impact the quality of care that we give too. But touching on the different ways that we can award individuals, one thing that really has come across in a lot of the work that we've done here at CNA in setting standards for workplace excellence, we've developed a certification program for workplaces. It's called the Stellar Certification Program, and within that, it's really highlighting that individuals stay resilient and they stay engaged in their work by getting awards that might not just be a recognition award, but awards that really help support them to grow as a professional or to grow within their careers. So for nursing, we have our CNA certification program, which allows them to specialize in a space of nursing. It is a way to be able to honor what the nurses are doing and the work that they do and the knowledge that they have. And it really signals to them that you as an organization or you as a leader, we believe in your expertise and we believe in the knowledge that you have and we want to invest in you to be able to see you to succeed and to grow in your career. So that's just one example. I know that there's examples of different avenues of professional development for every classification of worker in healthcare. But it's a way that team recognition can really be amplified by investing in your teams and investing in their successes and award them in another way.
That's a really good point about professional development as a way to make sure that that the employer, the organization is saying, you know what, the work you do is so important. We really want to honor that. And Zach, I'm curious with Cameron Health, is there anything you could share about professional development and the way that that's kind of structured or any thoughts around that?
Um, yeah, we've used Bucket List in a couple different ways in terms of like we're kind of getting big into creating awards right now. So we're going to have some different safety awards that are implemented, and so we're giving staff the opportunity to be like safety champions, safety coaches, and whatnot. And then it's a way for them to grow, develop, but then it's also a way for them to look for some of the great things that are going on across our organization and recognize our associates. We just recently created a nursing award for compassion that is to memorialize a nurse that we had that passed away a year ago. And so we're going to be giving out that award for the first time here in November. And again, it's just another way for us to recognize a nurse across our organization for either an act or a series of acts related to compassion. And so again, we're trying to be creative in the ways that we're recognizing our staff for, again, going above and beyond, growing as a professional in the healthcare space, or even trying to memorialize somebody that is no longer with us that meant a ton to our organization. So.
Cameron Health is so good with the stories and building culture through stories. Like with these legacy awards, you're just really keeping that person's memory alive. And every time you do, the nominations or giving out the award, their story is just remembered again over and over, and just um, that really reminds people of why the work they do matters. So I think it's a fantastic example of how to use awards and keep the legacy going.
And recognition and the legacy awards, professional development, those are all great engagement tools as well. And we all know that, in the healthcare industry, there is a high amount of turnover. But when employees have that professional development, they're feeling valued and rewarded, they do tend to stay on long, which is, definitely something to keep in mind.
So these are all definitely great examples of, recognition and connection happening, and lots of great examples being given of how we can be really present and personal and how we engage people and make sure that they feel rewarded in the way that means the most to them. And so we had a couple of questions submitted about building connections, and a big part of our relationships with each other is knowing when and how we can ask for help and feel supported in the work that we're doing. And of course, admitting that we need support or that we don't know something can often be really uncomfortable or vulnerable. And so now the next few questions, I'd love to pick your brains on how we can make those conversations safer and more normal at work. So first question in this set, what are some more comfortable or less exposing ways that someone can ask for help, especially when it comes to, managers or clinicians who are worried that it might look like weakness on their part? Zach, is there anything that Cameron Health does to help mitigate these feelings?
Well, a couple things I'd mention here. I'll go back to Misty's response on leadership rounding. I think that's so important in terms of giving associates the opportunity to connect with you, giving them the space to engage in dialogue and the opportunity to share concerns and whatnot. I think a bigger overall topic with this is something we describe as just culture. We are humans. We work in a healthcare space. Obviously, mistakes in the healthcare space can have significant implications for our patients and families. But we try to stress that when situations don't go as we want, it's not necessarily individuals that fail, but it's processes that fail. We want to look at these things and look at them as opportunities for us to get better and opportunities for us to improve. And if we approach it from that mindset, I think staff are much more comfortable coming forward and bringing those concerns to their peers and to their leadership, as opposed to if you have like a punitive type culture. I think a lot of those things may not be escalated, may not be communicated, and almost may be swept underneath the rug. And so, again, I think Misty's response on leadership rounding is very impactful. But I think having that culture where staff feel comfortable bringing forth concerns, having safety huddles where you start every safety huddle meeting with, hey, is there any safety concerns that we need to address today? Any opportunities for us? So I think it's an organizational standpoint to really develop and sustain that just culture.
Amazing. Shannon or Misty, anything to add?
Sure. I think a great way to look at it is also maybe reframing that narrative, not necessarily saying, I need help, but saying, hey, you have expertise in this. How can you provide that expertise in this situation? Or let's be collaborative about a problem that we need to solve. Or a learning opportunity. I haven't encountered this scenario or done this process before. Can you walk me through how you would approach it so I can learn for next time?
I love the idea of reframing. It definitely helps build that normalcy and asking for help, and also asking for expertise that we might not have, because we definitely can't be expected to know everything all the time.
Exactly. More inclusive.
Yeah, it's not just more inclusive though, Shannon. I would argue that it's a strength. And I think for too long our cultures have evolved. And I think it's not just workplace culture. I think it's just our culture in general that we see help seeking as a weakness often. And I think that all of us need to be better at that. Even myself. I hesitate to ask for help because I don't want to burden someone else. But really, coming together and having those discussions and working together to come to a solution often is a strength. And we need to see that help seeking as a strength. It's not an admission of incompetence. It's a commitment that I'm trying to give the best care I can, but I don't know the answers. And maybe someone else has the answers that I don't. So I think it's a culture shift that we need to work towards in our organizations across healthcare. And I think that maybe there's an opportunity here that leaders can model that often leaders are looked to have all the answers or expected to have all the answers. And it's okay to say, I don't know, or I need to take this away, or can I walk through this with you? So Shannon, I totally agree with you that it's having that communication, that collaboration is really going to be key. But building that culture behind it's really what we need.
And I love that you bring up the culture because so many organizations, and across the board, um, really need to think about having that continuous learning culture. And asking for help, yeah, is part of that culture. However you're framing it, but really having, like you said, that culture there really helps to take some of the, I guess, fear out of the equation. That it is not a derogatory item to go and ask for help.
And when you see leaders doing it, it just makes it feel so much more okay to do it. Like, and the language that they're using, we can definitely model it. And then also just the action of seeing like, oh, if they are asking for help, it's definitely okay for me to be asking for help and tapping into my colleagues. And so how can we normalize emotional check-ins or create space for team members to express when they're not okay? Any ideas or thoughts around that?
Well, again, going back to Misty talking about culture, creating that, supportive culture and putting importance on everyone's mental well-being, everyone needing to refill that bucket, from the top down, um, is important.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think again, as we've mentioned before, rounding on staff, being present with staff, building relationships with staff. Ultimately, I think you need to spend time with your staff and get to know them so that they feel comfortable bringing things to you, bringing things to your attention. Um, One of the things we've recently done here is we've communicated out, and we had kind of have like a template where we communicate everyone's safety huddles, like when they have safety huddles or whatnot, so that different leaders can go to different safety huddles and kind of learn about some of the great things that other people are doing and whatnot. And you're spending again time with staff so that if there is something that comes up, that they feel comfortable bringing it to you. And then I also think, like, it sounds weird, but you really just need to care about your team. And so if someone calls in sick, are you checking in on them? Are you seeing how they're doing? Are you seeing if there's anything that they need on their service anniversary, on their birthday? What types of things are you doing to make them feel valued? I think one of the more impactful things, I typically have an Excel file that has like all of our associates, at least that report to me on it. And I typically write a card home to all of our associates once a year, and I keep track of it because I want it to be random. I want to maybe see something that they've done really well and just send them a card to home and thanking them for what they do. Cards to home are just so powerful. It means that they know that their leader is taking time to acknowledge them for the things that they're doing. They care about the person. So I think, again, time, being present, building those relationships, huge.
And I think that also we need to prepare the leaders to be able to have these conversations and to give them the tools that they need to ask these questions, because it's not easy when you know someone's struggling with something that might have been traumatic or that's really bothering them, or maybe they had a really significant event happen on their past shift and you know they're not okay. Going in to ask them those questions, it can be daunting. If it's a whole team that you know has been affected and you want to kind of break down what happened and have a debrief with them, that's a high, tall order, one that often leaders aren't prepared to do. So I really think that there's an onus on senior leadership or on the organization policy makers to require their leaderships to have some training in psychological safety, in debriefing tactics, in trauma-informed communication, so that when they do these emotional check-ins, that they are consistent, that they are backed by research, that they feel prepared when they're going in, so they know what kind of questions to ask. They're prepared to receive the answers that they're going to get and how to act on them. This is something that we really felt strongly to weave into our workplace excellence standards, because I've seen the fallout. I've seen the leaders freeze because they just don't know what to say when they get told the things that they're told when they do these check-ins. So it's really, I think, supporting our leaders and ensuring that they have the support they need to normalize emotional check-ins or to handle those emotional check-ins is really important.
I, Missy, I think that's such a great point. I think stressing the leaders that they don't always need to have the answers in those moments. Sometimes you just need to be present and just listen. Um, and again, sometimes if they're bringing a concern to you or whatnot, even if you don't have the answers, like, hey, I don't know, I don't have the answer right now, but we're going to work together to find it, or I'm going to connect you with this person or whatnot. So not knowing an answer is okay, but being present and just listening to the associates at those times is more impactful and powerful, in my opinion. So I thought that was a great point.
And sometimes the follow-up is just as important as the conversation.
Yep.
So letting them know that it's okay that they don't have the answers, it's a key thing.
And of course, resilience doesn't just stop at work. Like we carry a lot of stress for both our, personal lives and our professional lives. And so another question that was submitted to ask about this, this idea of building a culture that really just feel safe and all of that. Many caregivers are also unpaid caregivers at home for, their family, their friends. And so it's important for organizations to proactively support this reality. And so what policies or benefits have you seen really help in this realm?
Yeah, I can start out here. I think this can be a struggle in healthcare, but one of the things that we try to do is build redundancy. We don't want to have a system or a process in place where if one person is out, the system fails or a task doesn't get done. So within our departments, we like to make sure that we have 3 to 4 people that are capable of doing that specific task or that specific job. So someone can take time off, be with their family, they can call off sick. They can do all those things and not worry that our patients and families are not going to be taken care of. And so a big thing that we stress in a lot of our areas is building redundancy. And again, that can be very challenging in the healthcare space. But it's something I feel like is important so that when people are off and they're away from work, they're not thinking about work, and that they have healthy work, family dynamics. So.
And again, I'm going to come at this from a little bit different angle, the truth, the more HR angle. Benefits, childcare, elder care, those are two really big, items and stressors, on a lot of us these days. So do you have support for childcare? Whether it's something that's in-house, maybe it's organizations that you partner with, maybe it's a backup emergency care number that you can call that have references. Having dependent, flexible spending accounts to help mitigate the costs of the child care, the elder care, and maybe it's employee resource groups that you can join, so you are amongst peers who are going through similar situations and can help provide that peer-to-peer support.
We don't have all the answers, but together we are.
It's a village.
Yes, it's a village. All right, last question. I know we're about to wrap up here, but what are some strategies to enhance resilience in senior leadership themselves? Burnout, of course, isn't limited to just certain roles, it's everyone. And so, Misty, I'd love to invite you to start for this one.
And this is one I've experienced firsthand, and I feel like senior leaders feel like the weight of the world is on their shoulders and that they are responsible for the entire organization and every being within it. But when we are telling our staff that we need you to take your breaks, we need you to ask for help, we're asking you to use these wellness resources, but the senior leaders aren't doing the same themselves, and they're working 16-hour days, and they are taking calls through their lunch, and they are not taking their vacations, or they're working throughout their vacations. It's not reinforcing a culture where the well-being is valued, and you're not modeling the behaviors you're asking your own staff to take. So how do you expect them to also do it? Healthcare workers are by nature high achievers. This is just the way that we're ingrained. But we need to almost sometimes schedule it into to your calendars to block off an hour so you can go take a walk at lunch and walk away from your desk. Some days the 16-hour days are unavoidable. It happens. But we need to take back our lives, take back those controls, and to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of the organizations and the people within them in the best way that we can.
Yeah, I could chime in. I think a pretty common term throughout the healthcare space, managing up. And a lot of times we think about that in terms of like maybe setting up a fellow colleague up for success when they're entering a patient's room, or if you're walking someone to a different service, what's the handoff look like? What's the bedside shift report look like? But I think that's important that us as like maybe me as a mid-level leader, that we're managing up our senior leaders, that we're setting them up for success as well, that we're talking positively about them. If for example, if a specific piece of equipment isn't approved, I'm not saying like, hey, we didn't get this because this person said no. We're talking positively about this. Hey, this doesn't make sense for us at this time, but maybe it'll make better sense for us next year. And so I think, again, looking for opportunities to talk positively about your senior leaders, setting them up for success when they're coming to your safety huddles and department meetings. I think that's a huge thing that me as a mid-level leader, it's a big responsibility for me and something I take seriously.
Shannon, anything before we wrap up?
Zach covered it great. I don't have anything to add on that one. Everyone definitely needs to refill their own bucket, senior leadership included.
Amazing. All right. So closing thoughts, one last lightning round. I'm looking for a one phrase answer. So one thing you can do this week to support resilience is?
For me, I would say I challenge myself every week. I want to do something special for somebody, whether that's a patient, whether that's a family member, whether that's a staff member. Every week, I want to do something that's like me going above and beyond, doing something special for someone that's going to make their day better. So that's what I'd say.
I think simple acknowledging your team members' efforts. I see you're working hard. Thank you for all you do. Whether it is that patient, advocate or frontline worker, or it is, somebody back in accounting who just had to deal with a horrible invoice, that they needed to look at. Everyone deserves that. I know you're working hard, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would say take a walk through your organization, see one person doing one good thing and celebrate that micro win with them, because it's those little moments that help to build overall resilience in our staff and in our cultures.
Thank you. Awesome. So I will share my screen again. I will launch the feedback pool shortly, but I would love to first give everyone a chance to talk about what they do, the important work that you're doing, and whatever it is that each of you wants to share. I'll be very fast. I think you've all heard this pitch a billion times by now, but Bucket List Rewards, we're all about employee rewards and recognition. So if you're interested in learning more and seeing what recognition can do for your culture, feel free to hit yes on the poll once I find it on my Zoom and launch it. Zach, would you like to take a few moments to share a few more things about Cameron Health?
Actually, we just went through a rebrand. We used to be Cameron Memorial Community Hospital. We're now Cameron Health. Again, we've partnered with Bucket List, and it's been the foundation of our rewards and recognition program. So again, I think we're in year 4, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's been a great partnership for us, and really I appreciate how, Rebecca, just how your team interacts with us. Sometimes I feel like you guys respond to emails before we send them. You guys are extremely responsive, great to work with. And I feel honored to, Cameron Health feels honored to partner with Bucket List. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. I'll be sure to let our team know. I'll be so happy to hear that. Misty, would you like to share more about CNA?
Yes, so the Canadian Nursing Association, we are the professional voice for nurses in Canada. We represent all areas of nurses. My work is mostly situated on standard setting and credentialing, and so one of our new programs that we've recently launched in 2024 is our Stellar Certification Program, which I mentioned a few times today, where we've set six standards of excellence for workplaces. And so this is really focusing on the leadership excellence, incorporating the employee's voice, optimizing care, ensuring appropriate resourcing, education, career progression. It's a great program. We've had a number of organizations go through it or are currently going through it, and we've had nothing but positive feedback. So if you're looking for more information on Stellar, our website's there. And please connect with us. We'd love to tell you more about our program.
Shannon?
Absolutely. PeopleFluent, again, is an HR software organization where we have compensation, talent management, learning, org charting, AI-powered skills. We work with a lot of various size healthcare organizations, among other organizations, where we are doing their annual compensation planning for corporate as well as facilities. We have onboarding checklists, that checklist to get the nurse on the floor that much quicker are all things that we can do and automate. So you have those different competencies that they need to go in and look at. We have a lot of learning for high consequence and regulated industries. So if you're interested in any or all of that, absolutely reach out to us.
Thank you so much to the panelists, of course, and also to the community who's been here engaging with us, sharing their thoughts and their ideas as well. So that's it. That's all of our summit for today.